The Simpsons. This show has been on the air for almost 30 years now, and it has totaled well over 600 episodes. And they even managed to do that without being forced to make filler arcs while they waited for the manga to get ahead. I'm so old that I remember a time when we had some hope that The Simpsons would eventually be cancelled. But since then, scientists have proven that The Simpsons going on forever and airing new episodes for all eternity is important for the fabric of reality. And for a show that's been going on for so long, you'd think that I'd review it more often, even with the Fox censors being taken into account. After all, I've reviewed a lot more Family Guy episodes, and the seasonal run of that show is a lot more recent than that of The Simpsons. The Simpsons has certainly had a ton of bad episodes, just by the default of having more episodes, compared to other shows that have suffered from seasonal rot like Family Guy or SpongeBob or even The Fairly OddParents. The thing, though, is that the bad episodes aren't as spectacular. You know, I don't want to brag or anything, but I have to dedicate time to a review to make these. And when I have to dedicate time to something, I need to make sure it's worthwhile. One of the reasons that The Simpsons has been called Zombie Simpsons is because it simply fails to surprise anymore. My least favorite episode of the series is regarding Margie, but I've never actually been tempted to review it because it's nothing more than a stupid plot that punishes a character that doesn't deserve it. That's all it is. It's hard to make a full review on that. Even with the best episodes of the modern seasons like Bart Hood or Brick Like Me, they all come from the same place. Someone else came up with the idea, The Simpsons decided to take it, and that idea just happened to work well with The Simpsons. It's been about 30 years. I think they're kind of done with their own ideas. Most people said that The Simpsons started to go downhill right around season 9. The biggest episode that's pointed towards the downfall of The Simpsons is The Principal and the Pauper, which has become one of the most infamous episodes in animation history. There have been essays and articles going into the sheer awfulness that is that episode. So I won't be talking too much about that one here. If you want to know why that episode sucks, it's just a Google search away. You're gonna be in for a long journey as you learn everything there is to know about it. The only thing that I have to add to the matter is that the rest of season 9 isn't much better. While I wouldn't call every episode of season 9 bad, it's hard to find an episode that ranks up there with the lines of some of the past classics, like Homer's Phobia, Lisa's Substitute, or 22 short films about Springfield. On top of that, many of the show's major problems began to manifest in this particular season, season 9. The Principal and the Pauper's biggest problem is the characters are unreliable in their consistency. Anything that you've grown attached to can be changed for a cheap laugh that might not even make an impact. Lisa the Simpson is one of the first biggest Lisa pity parties, complete with a problem that ends up not existing, and a plot that's happy to admit that it wasted your time. And of course, there's the episode where the Simpsons decided to abandon any heart and good spirit that it had. Miracle on Evergreen Terrace. Some people want new toys for Christmas. Some people want special jewelry. Me personally, I want to get broken. I want to feel very, very sad. That is what I want this Christmas. What? That doesn't sound like something that somebody in their reasonable mind would say? Well, someone somewhere must have thought that that's exactly what people wanted, because that is largely the point of this episode. This episode exists to make you feel sad. I will admit though, the opening scene properly sets the tone for the entire episode. Homer starts the episode angry, beating up his heater in his car because it's not working properly. But to the episode's credit, it does start out with some funny jokes. I like how this episode begins.
Oh, Santa's got a little trick up his sleeve. Attention shoppers, Register 9 is now open for your shopping convenience. Sorry, these are for display only. This has been recalled. Ooh, Bart would like this. We're out of these.
Out, but I just...
Register 9 is now closed.
I don't know why, I just love Homer pretending to be a cashier so he can get out of Christmas shopping. It's actually a lot smarter than I'm used to seeing Homer, and it's a funny gag. The episode actually seems to go well. There are a few funny gags.
Come on, kids, let's try the lights.
It's craptacular.
But everything starts going downhill when Bart sets the tree on fire and ruins Christmas for everyone. Alright, let's start with the obvious. Simpsons did it! I know that it's hard to come up with new ideas after 9 seasons, but there actually already was an episode about Bart setting the centerpiece of a holiday on fire and ruining it for everyone. The season 2 episode, Bart vs. Thanksgiving. And even that was one of the more episodes of season 2, because it tended to be a bit too mean-spirited and wishy-washy. But this episode, wow, they are going for the gold. So the main plot of this episode is basically designed to toy with your emotions as much as possible. Bart hides a tree in the snow and lies to his family, saying that a burglar stole their Christmas. The family tries to stay positive, but the episode ends up dedicating to ruining their lives, with one painful jab after another. The news finds the Simpson house because Christmas potatoes, and then the whole town pitches in to give the Simpsons a bunch of money. They spend the money on a car, which is destroyed almost immediately. Then the town finds out what Bart did and turns on the entire Simpson family, hating them. I mean, Homer and Marge do continue to lie for like 5 seconds before they're discovered, but it's really hard to judge them when they're caught on the spot instantly the second they learn of what really happened. The town of Springfield then ends up hating the Simpsons because if it worked in Homer Badman, it could work in every single episode after. The town ends up forgiving the Simpsons, but that's only because they've robbed the Simpsons for everything they're worth. It's okay though, they have each other, except they would have had each other anyways, which is their actual literal words in the episode. The point of the episode is to subvert those saccharine happy Christmas specials that you tend to get every single year. You'll notice that there are plenty of references to a wide variety of Christmas specials, except strangely enough Miracle on 34th Street. But the most notable reference is the scene where the town pitches in and gives $15,000 to the Simpsons. It's a direct reference to It's a Wonderful Life. It's just supposed to be funny here because we know that Bart ruined Christmas and all these people's money is going to nothing but a lie. Isn't that hilarious? Alright, let's talk about subversion. There are many reasons that an episode of a good show can become an atrocity, but I think that one of the most common reasons is the episode attempts to be a subversion of a particular trope or plotline, and that's all it wants to be. Way back in the day, I covered It's a Wishful Life, which tried to be a subversion of the typical someone wishing that they were never born plot. The typical plot is that someone wishes that they were never born, and they find out that the world is much worse off without them. It's a Wishful Life subverts this by showing that the world is much happier with Timmy no longer being there. Isn't that a much better plotline? Don't you want to see that so much more? There was also Town and Out, which tried to break down the cliches of a typical superhero show, and basically created a world that didn't care for the Powerpuff Girls and constantly harassed and abused them and tortured them for 11 minutes. And there's like nothing else in that episode. Teen Titans Go also does this a lot. The episode Staring at the Future subverts the idea that cartoons should teach kids to be responsible for their future by telling them that they shouldn't be responsible for their future. And that is the point of the episode. And I could go on and on with episodes I've reviewed, but I think you get the point. Let me put it this way. When building something like a restaurant, you could subvert the regulation that you need to have easily accessible fire escapes. You could definitely do that. That is something that you could feasibly do if you have the supplies. You could build that restaurant without any fire escapes. It is something that you could possibly do. But it kind of strikes me as a bad idea and something you probably shouldn't do because the fire escapes are there for a reason. I think this actually ties in very well with my last couple of reviews. Because as much as I complained about cliches, do you know what constantly screws up if you don't know what the hell you're doing? Subverting cliches. Going out of your way to subvert cliches is like writing on hard mode. What you need to understand about cliches is that each of them, each and every one, do exist for a reason. Not always a good reason, but a reason nonetheless. And when you remove it, something about the rest of the story may not work on a functional level. Why do cars never start in horror movies? Because then the character would be able to get away. What happens if you wrote a horror story where the car did start? Well, then your protagonist would be able to get away and there would be no horror. What people have to realize is that subverting cliches, in and of themselves, is not an end goal. Like with this episode, it goes out of its way to subvert all the good cheer and put the Simpsons family in misery, because it's different than every other Christmas special. When watching something like this, there tends to be one thought that goes through my head. But why though? Why are you doing this? Wishful Life. Why do you want to make Timmy feel miserable for his existence? Town and Out. Why do you want to spend 11 minutes with a town that hates the girls? Arnold betrays Iggy. Why do you want to showcase Arnold getting nothing but misery for helping someone? Because it's different is not a good enough response. Okay, congratulations, you're different. You're like a computer with absolutely no way to turn it on. But it's different than every other computer. Unless you're trying to get something exhibited in a modern art gallery, that is not an end goal that anyone actually wants to see in and of itself. A good point of comparison is BoJack Horseman. That show is not great just because it's different and just because it goes against cliches. It's different because the subversions have a reason to be there. It breaks the cliches of your typical sitcom because it wants to show you the kind of misery that following through cliched sitcom logic will lead you. When I watch BoJack Horseman, even as it gets dark and miserable, I know why I'm watching BoJack Horseman. But when I see two orphans give Bart their only dollar, the question in my head is, why am I watching this? What am I getting out of this? There are so many other things I could be watching. Maybe it's because I'm expecting Bart to turn around and learn his lesson. Then he does, and he ends up getting punished for coming clean, both to his family and to his town. This is one of those episodes that punishes you for having any sort of investment, and I hate that. I hate shows that punish you for caring, that punish you for paying attention. It is just so insulting. And yeah, I get that everyone being angry at Bart for coming clean about this is more realistic. But I'm not exactly looking for down-to-earth realism in a show that just a couple of episodes ago revealed that one of their long-standing characters was actually an imposter for no real reason. And when the orphans reveal that their money was their vitamin money, it just kicks you again, for no real reason. It punishes you for having any sense of investment, for caring at all, for having any sense of sympathy. And yeah, The Simpsons isn't a bright and sunshiny show. You know, until it wants to be in episodes like Lisa's Substitute or Homer's Phobia or Brick Like Me. But hell, even if you want me to take some kind of satisfaction in the pain of these people, it might help to make the other Simpsons not, you know, completely innocent. One of the biggest problems is that the Simpsons as a family do not do anything to warrant the treatment that they get. Yeah, Homer is a bit of an asshole taking someone's presents in the line, but it's like the only bad thing that he does. And it's not like he literally steals them. He pays for the gifts himself. And that's nothing to say of Marge, Lisa, or Maggie, who do absolutely nothing wrong in the episode. They're all just dragged along for the ride. They do lie to the newscaster. I'm sorry, Homer and Marge do. But Lisa doesn't even get the opportunity to do that. She spends the episode having her Christmas destroyed, the town's kindness falling into a lake in front of her eyes, finding out that her brother ruined her Christmas, then getting turned into a pariah by the town, and then getting robbed again through no fault of her own. Why would I want to see that? Why would I want to see any of this? Even if I hated Lisa as a character, this is not done in a satisfactory way. You want to see characters ruined by their own hubris, not by the actions of someone else. You know, if you want me to get some satisfaction out of Lisa's pain and misery, you gotta make that pain and misery out of her own hubris. And the episode is just too harsh. And here's the fun part. The only one who did something wrong in the entire episode, Bart, constantly felt bad, and then he apologized. And once he apologized, everything got worse for him. If you want me to feel happy that he gets the short end of the stick, they should have shown his more arrogant and reckless self. A lot of this abuse would be more warranted if Bart refused to apologize, instead of wanting to do that throughout the entire episode. The Simpsons continually try to stay optimistic throughout the episode, but as the world constantly beats them down, it kind of breaks any tone that the episode could have gotten. If the episode didn't have any moments where, like, the town pitched in for the Simpsons, I could at least appreciate it for having that kind of consistency. But when the characters get their hopes up and then get punished for having their hopes up, it just gets kind of wishy-washy. And on top of that, the audience also kind of gets punished for getting their hopes up. You're constantly expecting some kind of payoff, but there's just nothing except these characters getting more and more piled on. And by the end of it, you just stop caring, which is actually kind of worse than being bitter or sad or miserable. The episode tries to end on a heartwarming note, with the family having a fun fight over the only thing they have left, a washcloth. But I'm not thinking of, oh, how sweet. I'm thinking, oh my god, that's all they have left. They're reduced to fighting over a literal rag. You just put me through 20 minutes of misery, and that's what you end on. It's not funny, it's not sweet, or heartwarming. I don't feel like I've gotten a warm invite into the life of this family. I feel like I'm standing out in the cold. And the end doesn't answer my question. Why? Not just why did I watch this, but why does this exist? Why does Miracle on Evergreen Terrace even exist? Okay, yes, happy Christmas stories are cliche and overdone. There is a place for a more miserable Christmas special, but that doesn't justify this particular Christmas special's existence. If you're subverting a cliche, one of your top priorities should be avoiding making me long for that cliche. Thank you, Miracle on Evergreen Terrace. I know now why I like all of the saccharine and stupid Christmas specials, because they don't make me feel pissy and miserable like you have. Great. You should be introducing me to something that I want to see more of. There's a reason that Simpsons roasting on an open fire is remembered so fondly, even though it's more close to your typical Christmas fare than this episode. And honestly, even the darker Simpsons holiday special thing doesn't help this episode stand out much. The season 7 Christmas special, Marge Be Not Proud, was a darker Simpsons holiday special, in which Bart shoplifts and basically gets grounded from Christmas to the point where he runs away. It is a little darker, it is a little bit more miserable, but how that episode ends justifies everything. But now that I think about it, 2 Christmas episodes essentially in a row where Bart's bad behavior ends up causing major strife on the holiday. I hope this doesn't become like a recurring theme or anything. Wouldn't want to have an episode where the town gets angry at Bart for doing something stupid like losing a baseball game. There's a reason Bart-focused episodes tend to be the worst episodes of the series. I get that this episode is supposed to be a black comedy. If that's your thing, you're better off watching A Christmas Story. The jokes in that movie are much funnier, the story is more consistent, and the payoff is much better. It has a consistent tone and it knows what it wants to do. It has a reason to exist. And by the way, this is coming from someone who doesn't like A Christmas Story either. And no, if you're wondering, I don't like it for more reasons than the overplay. And that was Miracle on Evergreen Terrace. And I suppose I should deal with the elephant in the room. Disney bought Fox, you guys! Did you hear? 'Cause I did. About 1,000 times now.
What the hell? What's happened to us?
I don't know, but suddenly I feel all sweet and warm and fuzzy. It seems we're in a universe where everything is drawn by Disney.
But all joking aside, I do think we need to have a serious talk about this. When asked about this, I made a joke about how this feels like the part in the Monopoly game where the player who is ahead is just buying up everything and we're going around the board just waiting to lose so we can go home. And you know, this exact situation, is kind of why the game Monopoly exists. I guess this does tie into the review because the board game Monopoly subverts the idea that a board game has to be fun, to warn us of this exact thing. Monopoly is a very, very, very boring board game. When one player is in the lead, it can take hours and hours just to lose and end the game, even though it's very, very clear where it's going to end up and who the winner is. Right now, Disney is in the lead, and it's probably going to do nothing but bad things for us all. The main crux of my thoughts is that Disney owns too much. I've probably thought this since they've bought Maker a couple of years ago. Sure, in each of the areas that they own, they have major competitors. In theatrical animation, they need to fight DreamWorks. In television animation, Warner Bros. In superheroes, DC. With Maker Studios, they need to fight, well, all content producers that aren't Maker. However, no one company is ever going to be able to challenge Disney as a whole. And with the acquisition of Fox, things become more and more concerning. One of the more notable questions is, where do they stop? Why should they stop buying things? Why aren't they just going to keep buying everything until there's nothing left to buy? One of the more concerning reasons that people were worried of this acquisition is that Fox has or had several direct competitors of Disney, most notably their news station and their sports station. Disney is growing more and more close to touching the edge of monopoly laws. If the player in first place teams up with, like, say, the player in third place, it doesn't matter how good the player in second place is doing, they are fucked. Never mind the players in 4th, 5th, or even 6th place. Say you're a new upstart company and you've released your first animated film. Well, all Disney needs to do is air their movie on the same weekend as yours, throw all of its advertising dollars at it from all of these mediums, and basically crush it. And then you're done. Your game is over. You can't begin. And while Disney does make good creative products, their influence on laws that are supposed to control and regulate businesses is nothing but a detriment. Disney buying more and more things may help franchises that are lagging, like Star Wars. But this is nothing but bad for those that aren't on the Disney brand, as they have a harder and harder time fighting and staying in business. Or, you know, they can sell out to Disney and make Disney even more powerful. Big companies merging like this tends to be nothing but bad for the consumer. As prices rise, creativity plummets, and newer competition has a hard time coming forth. On the business side of things, Disney is the company that is most responsible for eroding the public domain. Not to mention, them constantly buying new things still feels like a temporary patch because they have long since been unable to come up with new ideas of their own. Yes, memeing the Disney owns Family Guy is hilarious, but it's just a distraction from a serious problem, one that we should pay attention to before it gets even worse. There is no better way to describe this than dangerous. While Disney has been more interested in creating entertainment than anything else, if they wanted to chokehold a competitor in any field, they have got the means to do it. If they want to make it so they don't have to compete with other internet companies or, say, the internet itself, they have the means to do it. Like with this buyout, it's clear that Netflix is going to have an extremely hard time competing with Disney. Like, it's been joked that they're looking for any show as possible and greenlighting everything, but that's because they're getting to be in more and more of a desperate situation. And, if Disney wants to get rid of those pesky anti-monopoly laws, well, all they need to do is spend some of that Marvel money, some of that Fox money, and they won't even have to touch the Frozen money. It seems comical, with Disney buying the rights to everything that don't seem to fit in with their brand, from Marvel to Star Wars. But that's only because they've been largely restrained. Imagine what would happen if Disney wanted to do something like go political with everything that they own. With Marvel, with LucasArts, with Maker, with Fox, with Hulu. How would anyone compete with that? It's worrying.